Hello and welcome to another episode of Attack the Baseline, a WNBA podcast where every episode we attack our baseline knowledge for the WNBA. We are John and Kristen Barber, and we're here following another week of the W. Kristen, what are we thinking? It was a fun one.
Yeah, it was a fun week. I liked being officially a Fever fan this week. I think we had been following the Fever to some degree beforehand, so it was, but hadn't, caught every game. So it was fun this week to really plug in and watch Caitlin and other players other than Caitlin, see what else the Fever has going on.
True. Yeah, we had a really great guest spot with a recently found Indiana Fever fan in James. So you'll get to hear that later on in the podcast. But before we get into that, we have plenty of news to talk about, and we have some players to highlight. So I think first news-worthy item would be the Commissioner's Cup, which started near the end of the week this week. And for those that are unfamiliar with how the Commissioner's Cup works, from June 1st, which is when it started, to the 13th, every game that is played is going to be a Commissioner Cup game.
Every game?
Every game.
Okay.
So if you're an NBA fan and you know what the in-season tournament is, it's kind of like that, except the in-season tournament has a wacky schedule. This one's like, no. 2 weeks dedicated all Commissioner Cup games. And you just play normal games that count towards your record, but each team plays 5 games against the other 5 teams in their conference. So there's 2 conferences with 6 teams. Each team plays 5 games against the other.
In total?
Yeah, you play 5 games.
Yeah.
In 13 days. Every team's going to play 5 games.
You play 1 game against each other team in your conference.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then whichever 2 teams, one from the East and one from the West, have the best winning percentage of those 5 games will go to a finals, like a Commissioner Cup final game on the 25th of June. And that's it. And it's there's like prize winnings, like an extra prize pool for all the players, but there's also a pool that's like money that the players can donate to charity, like however they want to donate it. So like kind of cool, neat little thing. I don't know what the prize pool is. I'm sure it's not enough, but that's par for the course with that.
There's a prize that says you have to donate this money to charity.
Correct. There's like a pool of money that's like you get X amount of money. I literally watched the thing and I was like, that's an interesting
that's kind of
stipulation.
weird.
Well, they still get paid.
Yeah.
But apparently it used to be at the end of August they would do the Commissioner Cup. And I don't know if it's this year because of the Olympics, and they've only done the Commissioner Cup since 2020, I want to say. So it's been fairly recent.
Okay.
But they're like, oh, let's make every game count in a 2-week span. So it's like, a little hotter.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Instead of being so confusing how the NBA did it this year.
It was like every Tuesday or every Friday was like a in-season tournament game.
Okay.
Stupid.
Great.
Yeah. So that's the Commissioner Cup. So if you're watching the WNBA this week, week 4 as we enter, and you're like, does this game have a little extra juice? It probably does because of the Commissioner Cup.
And all these games just normally count towards the regular season standings.
Correct. Except, I guess, the final?
Yeah, except I would guess that.
Yeah, so you play like a 41st game if you're a champion team. So, let's say the Aces versus the Liberty, or the Sun versus the Aces, or the Lynx.
Sun versus the Lynx.
Could be. Which I think is a great way for us to segue.
Yeah, we'll segue into the standings. So I want to preface this by saying how annoying it is, the inconsistency of the number of games that teams have played so far.
Okay.
Because the Fever have played 11 games in 20 days.
Since we recorded this, yes.
And the Aces have played 6.
Is it just the Aces that have played 6? Is there anybody else that has played 6?
Yeah, they're the only ones that have played 6.
Okay.
Because a couple have played 7.
The other day it was like 4 teams that played 6, and I was like, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're the only ones that have played. So 6 to 11 games is the range here.
Pretty wild.
Of what we're working with. But in the Eastern Conference, you have the Sun on top 8-0. The first time they've ever been 8-0. I don't know if other teams have ever done that, but that's exciting for them. And I think people didn't think that was going to happen.
No.
So that's exciting.
No.
And then the Liberty are behind them at 7-2. And then at the bottom, the Mystics are 0-8.
Yep.
So
If you thought Indiana was bad, the Mystics,
worse.
they're worse.
And then in the Western Conference, you have the Lynx on top at 6-2, and the Aces behind them at 4-2.
Yeah.
So if the Aces win their next couple games, I mean, they can beat out the Lynx.
Right.
And then the Sparks at the bottom at 2-6.
Right. So things are shaping as we expected in certain cases. We knew that the Sun were going to be good. We didn't expect. It's hard to expect 8-0 like big win streaks, especially watching for the first time. We're like, oh, this is sort of unprecedented territory. But we know that team is just like full of really good players that have played together, that know what they're doing, and cohesion and talent.
And they've been, I think a lot of them have played together for a while. So.
Right. And you got the Dewana to AT connection.
Oh, that's chemistry.
The fiance. I was gonna say financial connection, but that's not what you say for fiancés. Anyway. So and then Washington being bad tracks. Indiana being bad, maybe a little surprising to some people who were new to the league like us. You kind of expected the Caitlin, and we talk about this in our guest spot, like you expect them to be better, but they probably will be by the end of the year, but they're not going to be.
They literally have the hardest schedule. It's like, I think it's just unfair to even be judging them right now.
Oh yeah, they constantly look exhausted.
They're so exhausted. They're playing a back-to-back after already playing the most number of games and playing the Aces and the Liberty. And
right, the hardest schedule by leaps and bounds, and they're like going West Coast, East Coast, West Coast, middle of the country, West Coast. Like ridiculous.
Okay. So yeah, we'll see.
Yes.
The Fever are 2-9 right now.
So like they have 9 losses, and the Aces have only played 6 total games.
Yeah.
They have 3 more losses than games played.
That's wild to me.
It is.
And it's just pissing me off because of my fantasy team, because none of my Aces ever play.
But who's number 1 in the fantasy rankings? Asia Wilson.
Yeah, who's only played twice a week for the past 3 weeks.
Everybody plays 40 games.
So I lose every week.
Everybody plays 40 games.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
It'll even out.
Exactly. So why don't we move into our player highlights before we get to the news? There's a big news story that's sort of, been a big part of the ecosystem the past couple of days. Kristen, why don't you talk about a couple players of note?
Sure. So already mentioned players, Alyssa Thomas and Asia Wilson have been named the WNBA Kia Players of the Month.
Sponsored by Kia.
Alyssa Thomas for the Eastern Conference on the Sun, and Asia Wilson for the Western Conference on the Aces. It is actually kind of crazy seeing I'm assuming these are the 2 players that have the most points per game. Okay, not correct.
No.
Okay, great. Because I was going to say Asia has 26 and Alyssa has 14.
Right.
So that seems like different.
No.
Okay.
We know that like Arike has
30. Arike has way more.
Yeah, it's not about that. It's about like it's about the fact that
Overall.
AT is the best player on the best team.
Well, yeah, she also has 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Like she probably has the most. I would have to look at Arike's and Kalia Copper's, other stats, but I would guess that Alyssa Thomas is perhaps the most rounded player then. In the Eastern Conference right now.
But like this is a subjective award. There's no like analytical reason that they necessarily are number 1. So
it's just the player of the month, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's awarded every month to a player that does really well in that month.
Yeah.
So there could be other better players than AT in the East, but she's pretty damn good and the team's undefeated. So you got to pick the best player from the undefeated team.
Right, exactly.
Right. So that's good. But I personally think in the West, given the way that things are in Minnesota, who are sort of playing above where they were initially expected. Personally, maybe I would consider the player of the month to be one Nafisa Collier, who, if you're unfamiliar, is the heart and soul of a really good Minnesota Lynx team that is 6-2, as we said, at the top of the Western Conference. And I just want to highlight some of the things that are interesting to note about Nafisa's game. This is her 6th year in the league. She's currently averaging 21.5 points, which is the same as last year, but that's still a really good point total. When you see a lot of point totals in the teens, like if you're above 20, that means you're like a premium offensive option in the league. I can pretty much tell that. Her field goal percentages are pretty much the same. She's shooting slightly better from 3 this year than last year, but I want to highlight the fact that she's up 3 whole rebounds compared to her stats. So her high watermark was 9. She's averaging 11.5, and she's getting a ton of offensive boards. Good. Like a whole offensive board more than her next highest year. And her assist totals are up from last year, from 2.5 to 3.4. So she's sharing the ball, she's getting boards, she's scoring at the same clip, and she's averaging 2.5 steals and 1.8 blocks, which are both high water marks in the stock department. So like defensive monster, offensive playmaker, offensive scorer. Mm-hmm. Like this is the reason that the Lynx are, where they're at, because she's her, basically.
Yeah.
So like,
well, dang, like I feel like I haven't watched the Lynx much.
I mean, we admittedly haven't.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm hearing a lot about it and haven't had as much of an opportunity as I've wanted to tap in. The Lynx are coming up on our schedule, not next week, but the week to follow, hopefully. But I know this week, because I haven't had a chance to watch them as much, that I want to dig in a little bit more and just see how she's been playing, because it sounds like she's been amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to watch her then.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And I mean, she obviously is great on the team, but they must have other great players as well. Correct. Being, first in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6 wins ain't nothing to, shake your nose about. I don't know what the turn of phrase is. I forget. Turn your nose up about. I don't remember. Let's dig into the news. We have one big news story that we're just going to kind of riff off of, because a lot of things have been said about it.
Yeah. And keep being said. And we're probably going to say something wrong or right, or we're not going to say anything you haven't already heard. It's just opinions.
It's just opinion. It's my opinion!
Well, it was convenient that we watched the team that this news surrounded this week.
Correct.
Essentially, probably the biggest thing that happened was in the Sky Fever game
last Saturday.
On Saturday, Caitlin and Chennedy Carter were guarding each other most of the game. Mm-hmm. And at one point, Caitlin was getting a pass in. I don't know what you call that. An inbound.
Aaliyah was inbounding to Caitlin.
And Chennedy Carter just ran up to Caitlin and shoved her to the ground.
She said, "You're up," and then threw an elbow.
Literally right in front of the ref.
Correct.
And he said, that's normal.
Common foul. Nothing crazy.
But, I mean, Caitlin kind of shook it off. The whole team kind of shook it off. And they didn't really complain about it, to my knowledge.
No. Yeah, it was kind of like... And they didn't even talk about it as much on the broadcast as I was expecting. But yeah, it just kind of happened.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Twitter blew up and everyone's like, "What's happening? Why are they doing this to Caitlin?" And it's like, I don't know. Because some people are like, there's probably, a sense of jealousy, but it's also whatever. Remind me, Chennedy Carter has a bit of a reputation as a tough player.
Yes. She has been suspended previously for saying she wants to fight her teammates.
Which is funny.
So she is not the best example of how the league in general feels about Caitlin or about anybody. She just seems... And the shove came right after she had made a good basket.
Right.
So I feel like she was just kind of feeling herself.
So juiced.
And just wanted to shove somebody.
Right.
I think she would have shoved whoever was there. I don't think it was because it was Caitlyn.
I don't know.
I just decided to shove. I think she would have shoved anybody. She just, like, needed to shove, I guess.
She just absolutely had to shove. Had to shove.
Yeah.
Couldn't control herself, had to shove. Interesting take.
I don't know. But afterwards, the league did upgrade the foul to a flagrant one and find the Sky and find Angel Reese.
Yes.
Because in the clip, you see Angel Reese kind of like stand up and cheer on the bench when Chennedy Carter does the shove.
Yeah.
And then Angel didn't come to her press after the game.
Correct.
Assuming because she didn't want to talk about it. So they find Angel Reese for not coming to press, and they find the Sky for allowing her to not come to press. Basically.
Yes, it was like a double tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, $1,000 to Angel and $5,000 to the Sky.
Yeah.
So not nothing.
I mean, if that's part of your other contract, you have to go to press, fine. Like,
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Obviously, upgrading the foul to flagrant, I think we all agree that is reasonable.
Correct.
From my perspective, I feel like Caitlyn, she's just in such a weird position because all eyes are on her. If you just look at how she's playing, it seems like she's struggling.
Right.
And not doing well. But if you look at the stats, she is doing well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's weird. And she's played so many games. She seems exhausted. And it
Has to
does
be.
seem like players are, you know, shoving her. Refs are calling her for a lot of fouls. And she's complaining a lot that they're not giving her fouls.
I have something to say about that, but you finish your thought.
I do think Kennedy's shove on her obviously shouldn't be happening because that's not what you do in basketball. Somebody's just trying to get an inbound pass. You shouldn't be shoving them.
Right.
But I think the league is very physical. You know, we talked last week how Angel Reese was like pushed down from her neck.
Alyssa
Thomas. Like, that stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to say, like, oh, these women can't be, like, pushed around.
Right.
You know, they're athletic. They can handle it.
Right.
I don't think Caitlyn should be getting any special treatment because
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say
because she's, you know, the number one rookie at the moment. And you see a lot of videos of her from college where she just kind of goes around shoving people to the ground.
Yeah.
So I think if anyone really is like, what are you doing? It's like Chennedy Carter.
Right.
She's got to just like check herself.
Yeah.
Because she has a history of like doing this.
Uh-huh.
But I am not particularly too mad about the incident. I don't think she should have been ejected from the game. Like Shaq said that.
Okay.
It's just like, let them play. Caitlyn didn't seem too mad about it.
Right.
So it's all right. And I just hope Angel also doesn't, nothing happens with Angel.
No, and everyone should be like, needs to appreciate Angel Reese because she is also bringing a ton of attention to the sport, and she's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, period. So, like, if you have a negative opinion about, you know, anyone involved, just, like, grow up, get over it. Like, it's fine. It happened. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, it's past. It was, like, a thing that got a lot of people talking, and certain people can't handle it, but it's, like, fine. It's fine. It was just like a bang bang thing. It was a little bush league, but whatever. It happens. You know, watch Draymond Green play. It's fine. Like, and I will say that, you know, the Fever, and I was arguing about this with my dad. The Fever need to have an enforcer on the team who is, you know, when this sort of stuff happens, they're like, hey, defend your teammate. Like, go up and, you know, get in Kennedy's face. You know, not doing anything crazy.
I want Aaliyah Boston to do that.
But I
don't think that's who she is.
Right. I was arguing that with my dad. He was like, Aaliyah inbounded the ball. She should be in Kennedy's face. And I'm like, that's not really Aaliyah's
But then Kennedy
vibe.
like ran away.
Yeah, right. It was like too late in the game. So, you know, if you feel a certain type of way, It's fine. It'll be fine. It's, everyone's taking lumps. It's rookie stuff.
What about the refs?
I do have something to say, though, about the fouls called on Caitlin, because I did a little research. She leads the league in technical fouls.
Oh, yeah, she does.
Yeah, she currently has 3. And I was like, when she got the second one, we were watching the game. I think we watched...
She got 2 this week.
I know.
Yeah.
I think we we saw 2. She's jawed with a lot of players. Mm-hmm. And that's, probably one of the reasons that it happened. Like, Vivian's on the Storm, she jawed with her. Got a technical. Mm-hmm. Like, she leads the league in tees, but it kind of reminds me of Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic led the NBA in technicals. He's a player that is kind of a similar mold. Like, he's not quite as slim as Caitlin, I will say it.
Okay.
But
she's slim.
He shoots the 3, and he creates very similar to the way Caitlin does, and he complains about a lot of calls because he's good. And Caitlin complains about a lot of calls because she's good, and she's gotten those calls in the past. So it's like, I just like something that I'm going to pay attention to. I'm not going to say that it's a perfect, analog, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that like these similar type of players are in similar positions.
I mean, I honestly hope that she like learns to close her mouth a little bit. It's just like annoying. Like literally it was such a breath of fresh air watching these past couple weeks because these women are just playing. They are not throwing themselves to the ground, being dramatic like the NBA players, yelling at the refs every single play because they think they got fouled.
Hoops first.
They're just playing. And that was really nice.
Right.
But Caitlin does it all the time, complains to them. And it's kind of annoying. And I hope she stops.
I think that's completely fair.
Okay.
I think that is completely fair.
Great.
So anyway, so that's the discourse. That's our take on it. Like,
one thing that I saw today that came out of it was on Stephen A's show. I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning or whatever, whenever the show's on. But he was like complaining about like how he has to. People are telling him that he has to watch what he's saying when he talks about Caitlin and the W. And basically Monica McNutt was on the show, and she was like, he said, nobody talks about the WNBA as much as I do. And Monica McNutt was like, Steven, respectfully, you could have been talking about it like this 3 years ago. And it was so funny watching the clip because everybody on the panel was silent for like at least 5 seconds after she said that.
Stephen A went,
Yeah, he went,
Good.
So I loved that little.
Yes. Like,
watch yourself.
Everyone's paying attention now, but like, we can't change the past. Let's just keep paying attention.
Yeah.
Let's keep enjoying it. And I think that's a perfect place to lead into this week's guest spot. Talk a little bit more about the Indiana Fever and the games that happened this week. And we'll see you on the other side. And now we are joined by friend of the pod, James, who is an Indiana Fever fan, a recent Indiana Fever fan. But I'll let him introduce himself. James, how you doing?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here. But yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk about being able to see the WNBA's newest star in person for her home debut in Indiana, but also a game she played just the other night against the Liberty, maybe? No, it was LA. It was the Sparks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is pretty cool. You're the first fan we've been able to have on that has seen a game this year in person. And when it's Caitlin Clark, that's pretty important. And that's something that we're going to want to know what that crowd is like, because as it appears on the TV, it seems like it's pretty raucous, pretty lively.
Well, the crowd, at least the first game that I was at, the preseason game, the crowd was hellacious.
Oh, really?
Definitely. Like the regular season game I went to the other day against the Sparks, the crowd wasn't bad by any means, but dude, the crowd was rocking for her home debut, even though it was a preseason game.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's a big It's a big time.
Yeah,
it's a
that
big
was
time.
exciting.
Yeah, especially the first game. Mm-hmm. Well, before we dig too deep into the games, why don't we take a second and why don't you tell our fans why you're an Indiana Fever fan?
Happy to. So, I moved to Indiana about 3 years or so ago. From the Northeast. Was living up in Dumont, New Jersey, which is like right on the border between New York, New Jersey, like on the Hudson River. But moved down here during COVID, and am just a Philly sports fan in general. But yeah, so I've kind of put down roots here in Indiana and decided it's about time to become a fan of the teams of Indiana. So this past year, I've become a fan of of the Pacers, the Colts, the Purdue Boilermakers basketball team. Not so much the football team, and then so now it's WNBA season, so I have a team local to me, and it's awesome being able to just drive an hour down the road and go and be a part of a home crowd. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I became a Fever fan. Is moved to Indiana and decided time to, you know, root for the home team.
I mean, it that makes a lot of sense. You're the most local. Well, we've had a Seattle fan for the Storm, but sounding like you're only an hour away and you're able to just get there when you want to get there. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty sweet gig, and this is certainly the time to pay attention to the Fever because everybody's talking about Caitlin Clark, whether they want to talk about it in a good way or in a bad way. Like there's a lot of conversation about the girl, and
yeah, or even if they don't want to talk about
it. Very true.
They're still talking about it.
Very true.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. Mm-hmm. So tell us about then. So you mentioned that the home opener preseason game was a really exciting crowd, and the first game of the week that we were able to watch was a great crowd. But like, go into a little more depth. Like, what was it exactly like? Like, all the fans were juiced, obviously, but like the team isn't doing particularly well. Like going into this week, they were 1-7 or 1-6, and they're starting to have a little turnaround. But what do you got?
So I guess I've gone to 2 games this season, and both games were definitely different. The first game, the preseason game against, I believe it was Arizona or Phoenix,
mm-hmm.
Whatever
yes,
that team
the
is.
Mercury.
But anyway, the Mercury. Yeah, but either way, so that game, the team played particularly well and was competitive throughout and ended up winning, like not easily, but the end of the game wasn't particularly close, and the team was just winning, and the crowd was rocking. Caitlin maybe had like a slow first quarter, but like even in the first half, she was cooking. Like everything was just going good, and so the fans came out for the first time to see this team. It's probably I would wager probably 90% of the people in that crowd, right? This is their first WNBA game, including myself. And so they came out and they won, and it was just a great time. But the game I went to against the Sparks, the LA game, I know that John, and I don't know if you watched it with him, Kristen, but they played like dog shit in the first half, like. Yeah. And it was not a fun time to be in that crowd, and it kind of felt like there were people that were like first time sports fans. That were like getting uneasy, like, wait, what the hell? I came to this game. It was supposed to be just a fun time. My team was gonna win. I have Caitlin Clark on my team. What's going on?
Interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. They were 1-6 at that point.
Yeah.
I can imagine, the vibes are less good as the home, the preseason game. And people are starting to wonder, like, what's going on? I thought Caitlin was going to save our team.
Yeah, it's, like, just thinking about that, it's funny that you bring up, like actual first-time sports fans. I've never really thought about it like that, but, like, these people, yeah, probably have never watched something and they just like fell in love with the like effect, the Caitlin Clark effect, and expect
Yeah.
something that isn't necessarily there. So have you seen like
Well, I saw plenty of people there that were there with like toddlers, like young kids that couldn't have been more than 4 years old, right? So there's a decent chance that this is their first time going to a game, and maybe the parents just brought the kids because I mean the tickets are also pretty cheap.
mhm.
Like I had nosebleeds that I think I bought for including Ticketmaster fees like $21 a pop.
Oh,
No,
wow.
not bad.
No,
Um,
that's surprising,
yeah,
actually.
so like a super cheap thing to go, and I brought myself um and I think five other people, so
Okay.
like I could get six tickets all next to each other for $21 a pop. So super easy thing to just like bring the kids to
Yeah.
on a weeknight,
Mm-hmm.
which is neat. It's a very cool family friendly thing. But it seems like those people have a pretty decent chance of having never been to a
Mm-hmm.
like sporting event
Uh-huh.
before.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I've seen so many pictures of like little girls holding up signs, saying, "Oh, I love
hmm
Caitlyn."
Uh-huh.
I mean, the W, they're like definitely using those as photos, but I see a lot of them.
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah, which is also
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like, in no way is that like being talking down about those
Mm-hmm.
people. That's
Oh yeah.
awesome that we're having new sports
Mm-hmm.
fans.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's always good one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about that game. So we were watching it, and you know, from a detailed point of view, I'm like paying attention
The regular
for
season
the
game
yeah
versus
for the
Sparks
regular
or
season
the
game.
preseason. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So
okay.
they end up losing that game by 6. So even though they like fell
Uh huh.
behind in the third, they like still were competitive. And the Sparks aren't a good team, but like some of the things I noticed of just about
Wait, are the Sparks not a good team?
the Sparks are not. They're like they're a little
No.
bit better, a little bit better.
Okay,
But
so this is how novice of a fan I am. I thought the Sparks were like a good team. Like I thought we were gonna go in there and get smoked because the Sparks were good.
Mm.
it's the Sparks have 2 more wins, 1 more win
Yeah.
than the
Okay,
Fever.
okay.
Like I think
That's funny.
it is funny. Like they have they have talent, but like still they're kind of in a similar position where they have a lot of young
Mm-hmm.
bodies.
Like I know they have Brink, obviously.
Yes, yeah, but like it's she's in a similar position to Caitlyn where she's also a rookie and like trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But like not a ton of veteran talent around
Okay.
that team. But one thing that I did notice, just from like a basketball perspective, is the Fever get a ton of like a pretty decent amount of open looks and just brick
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And they said on the I think in the game from yesterday, so they played the Sky yesterday. As we're recording this, they're
Yeah,
currently.
I did not end up watching that game.
Mm.
But I recommend anybody and all to check out that one because that was a great one. But they said
Yeah.
on the broadcast that the team last year missed the most open threes of any other team in the league, and this year they're doing the same thing. So like,
Mm.
Well, yeah, it's because they're bad, right? Like that's what bad teams do is they miss shots,
Yeah.
right? Like most teams can run a competent offense where they're driving, kicking, and yada yada, and they're generating decent looks, but like they're just not a good team.
mm-hmm.
Like that's what I noticed. Caitlyn would do a good job of set. I remember there was one play. Holy crap! I think it might have been the fourth quarter after the Sparks kind of pulled away.
Mm-hmm.
But it was maybe like if you could squint, you could see a game in there. And the Fever had a fast break where they one of the girls stole the ball, threw it up court to another one. I think it was number 17.
Erica Wheeler, I want to say.
Yeah, 17, yeah. It was her though. But I think it was her and she had the ball. There was nobody else within like the 3-point line at least, and her feet just got like tied up under her, and she couldn't get it up for a layup, and like picked up her dribble, and just like there was a wide open layup, and she just like didn't get it, and it's like, okay, this team kind of just stinks. Like,
yeah.
like there's some good players on the team for sure, but all in all, they do stink.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We learned, Kristen and I learned the other night that they've had, so 3 years ago or 2 years ago they had the number 2 overall pick. Last year they had the number 1 overall pick, and this past year obviously they had the number 1 overall pick. So for the last 3 years they've had premium.
Okay, so that was Clark, that was Boston. Who was the number 2?
Clark, Boston, and Nalissa Smith, who was like,
oh, okay.
She ended up starting.
No, she's good. I like her.
She is good.
Yeah, she's good.
But
so my question is, that's a lot of top picks.
Right.
Why are they still not good? I don't know.
Do you have the answer?
My question is why haven't they? I mean, I think the answer is they haven't gone to get other veterans that can shoot, that can, bring more of experience to the team. But I don't understand why they haven't done that.
Huh. Well, I mean, I also have the background of being a Process Sixers fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping you would bring this up.
Yeah, which I don't know how much your listeners are familiar with that, and we don't need to do like a whole retrospective on the Process Sixers, but like basically the whole bit, like they had a top 3 pick 4 or so years in a row, and still sucked, right? And so like the question of how can you keep having these top picks and having these like high caliber young players but still being a bad basketball team? And the answer with the Process Sixers was some of them actually weren't as good as you hoped they were, right? Like we had Okafor, we had Nerlens, who I really did like Nerlens, to be honest, but he was obviously never going to be a star once you saw him in the NBA. And then obviously the Fultz debacle, the Ben Simmons, we all know all the freaking things. And so maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. I suspect that right now Caitlin Clark is getting her sea legs under her. And if we were to pod again in like a month, we might be speaking differently about the Fever.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw her in the first half of the Sparks game, and she was playing bad. Like, and you could see it was getting in her head, and she was forcing it and getting frustrated and then making more mistakes. But in the second half, there were a few plays where it looked like she was doing the like James Harden, the Chris Paul, the LeBron, where they have the ball in their hands and they are somehow controlling the other 9 players on the court while just dribbling at the top of the key,
Yeah.
Like, she did that a few times, and that's like, holy crap, that's her future when she does that every time.
Right.
And then I saw her play a game the next day or so. I don't know who it was against. But I saw another, like, more plays like that, right? Than I saw when I watched her in person. And it's like, okay, like, this, like, she's got it in her. Okay, quite obviously, she's got it in her.
Right.
And it's just going to take her just a few, however long, to figure, to do it every night. But eventually, like, I have no doubt she's going to be doing that every night. And the Fever are going to quite quickly become not a lottery team. Like, we might pick in the lottery this year. I'd be shocked if we're picking in the lottery next year.
Yeah, I tend to...
Just based on her talent developing alone.
Yeah, right. I tend to agree. And, like, she statistically, like, even though the shot has been pretty rough, I think she's shooting, like, 30% on her threes, which is, like, her bread and butter, obviously. But on, like, high volume, she's gonna eventually...
And also, like, she's got people up in her grill consistently.
Oh, big time. Because they know who she is. Like, her reputation precedes her, and...
Like, I don't know if this stat is like a available stat, but like, what percentage of her shots has come with like a defender further than 5 feet of her? I bet you a very small percentage. Like, she has had people all up in her face even when she doesn't have the ball, dude. Like, one of the notes I had from while I was at the preseason game at her home opener, which again this was a preseason game, was number 15 on the Dream. I forget, I don't know who that is, but she was guarding Caitlyn for a good part of the game, and she was face guarding her, and they were doubling her when she didn't have the ball, like in a preseason game
Wow.
against a rookie.
Yeah, right. That alone tells you, speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So maybe she's shooting 30% from three, but that's the attention she's getting. And again, these are from adult women professionals.
Right.
So the best players she's ever played against, face guarding her and doubling her without the ball. Yeah, she's having some growing pains. That's pretty natural, right?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you that she will figure it out. I think it's partly she will figure it out and keep getting more comfortable, and then the coach and the team will figure out how to use her more efficiently or effectively with the other players. Because even though she is having, a lower percentage of shots made, she still, they said on the broadcast yesterday, she's only the second player to have 150 points, 50 rebounds, and 50 assists in her first 10 games. Which, like, she's still doing a great job already.
Right.
It's like, but she has such great possessions and such bad possessions, so it just kind of has to even out a little bit.
Uh-huh. She does have some horrible possessions.
like hilariously bad.
Yeah.
So the possession that I remember from the game against the Sparks just like last Tuesday or so was the end of the first half, and they had the ball with 30 seconds left. Like, the Sparks had scored, Fever ball, 30 seconds left. And one of the things that my wife freaking hates more than anything is when teams go for the 2-for-1. And they just like get off a like dog shit three that always misses, and then the other team gets a good possession, scores, and then they have the ball with like 4 seconds left, and they like have a heave and miss that also. And so like instead of a 2-for-1, it's like a 0-for-1. And so Caitlin Clark found a way to do something worse than that. So they had the ball with like 30 seconds left, and so she dribbled the ball up the court until there was 23 seconds left or so. And then she took a step back logo 3 with 23 seconds left with the person on her that like clunked and missed.
Yeah, of course.
And so then the other team just like had the ball with with the shot clock turned off. Like, it's like, wow, that might be one of the worst offensive possessions I've ever seen in my life. Like,
it's the logo. It's the logo 3. She wants to hit those logo 3s so bad that, like, I get it. I understand. You can. But, like, maybe
she gets them sometimes.
She does. She gets them sometimes, but maybe not the best use.
And it's cool.
Oh, it is very cool. It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the coach not knowing how to use her, and I'm like a new Fever fan, right? Like I'm completely bandwagon. Like,
oh yeah, us too.
But I see online people are complaining about the coach. They're saying the coach holding the team back. This team has Aaliyah Boston. They have Caitlin Clark. They have number 0, Kelsey something.
Kelsey Mitchell. Yeah.
Kelsey Mitchell. Yeah, like they've got some good talent. This coach is just a bozo, right? She doesn't know how to use her. This is like the Midwest Stock Rivers, right? Get a new coach in here. This team is going to take off. And I don't know enough about this team to like know if that's a reasonable take or if that's just like new sports fans that are just like, Caitlin Clark's on this team, why aren't they winning, right? Do you all know anything about that? Like, you, John, or you, Kristen? Like, do you know anything about their coach or like how they've been using the team?
I don't know. So I don't know the specifics, but this is the coach's second year. So she's been here for Aaliyah's rookie year. Aaliyah won Rookie of the Year last year, but like it was a pretty weak field, so it made sense that she was going to take that
Also,
award.
I'm a big Aaliyah guy. I think she rules. Like,
She's great. She's very good.
Yeah, we love her.
She struggled with she's had some foul issues at least watching this week. We were like, oh man, she's on the bench, and we're like, where is she when she plays? The team does so much better. It's kind of like a Joelle on-off thing. Like when she's on, they're great.
No, I like see a lot of KG in her to be honest, like where she's like got that shot, but she's also like an interior presence.
Yeah, big time. But as far as the coach is concerned, a lot of the personnel that's on the team now, outside of the Caitlin of it all, is players that were there last year, and the team wasn't good last year, and the team is bad this year. So I've wondered watching the last week, like if it is a coaching thing, and that's sort of a judgment of outside of a person that I don't exactly know, and I've only watched at most 5 or 6 games of Fever basketball, but there are some. You said like a Midwest Doc Rivers. There are plays where I'm like, why aren't we doing like an Aaliyah and a Caitlin pick and roll, or just like spamming something that is obviously going to result in a decent shot or like more efficient offense.
And I have one particular beef.
Sure.
And it might just be completely unnecessary and like I don't know what I'm talking about, but. So I went to the preseason game, and that game was competitive. That's one thing I want to bring up. That preseason game, they were playing like a regular season game. Like they played all of the stars full minutes. The players were playing to win. They were going hard. For a preseason game for not 48 minutes, for 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But they played number 34, Grace Berger, in that preseason game quite a bit, and she ruled, dude. She's my girl. I'm standing her. Like,
sure.
Official James player. Grace Berger. She rules. And she gets played like frickin' Korkmaz. She's better. She's good.
It's interesting that you say that, because I have had an opposite opinion, like a direct opposite opinion.
No, dude, she rules.
No, yes, dude.
You're wrong. I'm right. That's fine.
I believe
Grace
you.
Berger freaking rules.
I believe you because you've watched more than us. But it's funny that you say she is like playing like Furcon. But yesterday, John was like, when we were watching the game, and she comes out and he says, I think she is the worst basketball player I've ever seen.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that. That's not what I said.
The worst player in the league, you said.
Oh, haters. Hater. It's okay.
She played much better yesterday.
Oh, that's so funny.
She did play much better yesterday. I will give her that.
She's a good player. She is not afraid. That's what I love about her. She has some cojones.
That's true. I'll give her that.
She goes out there and she hoops. Like, I remember when we were watching her in the preseason game, she was on the court, and I could tell within a minute, what kind of player she was. And I said to my wife, it was like, Grace Berger does not care who Caitlin Clark is, and then she just took a pull-up 3 and canned it. Like, and that was what made me love her. She's like, yeah, I don't care who Caitlin Clark is, who Aaliyah Boston is. Like, I'm Grace Berger. Let's hoop. Like, let's go.
Hey, it is a good mentality to have, and
she was the number 7 overall pick last year, right?
I don't know.
I think you were right. Well, I can fact check you on that, but I'm pretty certain.
Like, I don't understand how she got doghoused this bad if she had that pedigree. Draft info, 2023 round 1 pick 7.
Well, you say draft pedigree, like, the 7th overall pick in the first round of the WNBA is not necessarily Angel was 7, true, but it's not necessarily like a number 7 overall pick in the NBA. Like, it's not a lottery pick. The lottery is only the first 4.
Yeah, but if your team sucks,
true, that's true.
Yeah, you need any picture you
like,
get.
Because my issue is that we were playing Erica Wheeler over her. Like, Erica Wheeler sucked. What are we doing? Like at least Grace Berger might be good.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely deserves.
Same with Lexi Hole. Like Lexi Hole was good when the highlights I've seen of her. Like,
yeah, another
back why are we playing 8th season? I'm looking 8th season Erica Wheeler, 8th season. So she's a vet who's not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we playing a 8th season vet over 2 players who were picked in the top 7 of their respective drafts the past 2 years?
Yeah.
Like, we suck. Fucking newsflash. We're losing currently. We're currently playing in the Commissioner's Cup, which I didn't know was a thing. We're losing by 31 points.
Yeah, it's the Liberty right
We're
now.
not a good team.
That's true.
Yeah, against Liberty, who rule. They're very good. We're not a good team. Why are we playing Erica Wheeler over Grace Berger and Lexi Hole? What's going on there?
Something that also was making me upset was not about them two, but about Aaliyah Boston. When she was in foul trouble, I was like, who cares? Like, just play her. So what?
Play her.
Fall out. What does it matter? Like, you need to get better and give her experience. Just play.
I actually, my wife's name is Natalie. She was saying to me while we were at the game, because Boston I think had 4 fouls in the third quarter or so, and she's like, oh my god, she has 4 fouls. They got to take her out. And I was saying, there's like, yeah, but also, like, think about it, like, if she plays the entire game and doesn't foul out, doesn't that mean you sat her too long?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
yep.
Like, you got less minutes out of her by not letting her foul out than you would have if you did what you did and let her sit and sat her for the entire second quarter or whatever they did.
Yeah.
And then she ended up playing the whole game. Good job, but still, played less minutes than they would have wanted her to.
Yeah, and that could be the coaching that we already talked about. Like, that's a decision that Christy Sides is making, because I don't know if she's concerned about Aaliyah fouling out and like being discouraged by that, but like I agree with Kristen. I agree with you. Like, just let her get reps, because she's good and she helps the team. And I mean, she's
very good.
She's very good. But yeah, I mean,
but I'm looking right now at her game log. That game she played 23 minutes and had 5 fouls. The game before that she played 29. The game before that she played 34. The game after that 26, and then 29. Like, she played, about 6 minutes less on average than her team normally wants her to play, because they held her out because she got in early foul trouble. Like, that's about a quarter, maybe a fifth to a quarter of the total minutes that you wanted her to play.
Yeah, and when you look at her average playtime so far this season, she is down, like, exactly as you said, 6 minutes or so compared to last year. So, like, what's that driver? I don't know, but that's like an important player that you're taking off the court that you probably shouldn't be doing. So,
especially, like, you're losing this year. That's fine. You're gonna lose. Let her and Caitlin get chemistry together. Like, like, we're seeing it with the Sixers. Like, the future of the Sixers is how well Joel and Tyrese can play together. The future of the Fever very well may be how well Caitlin and Boston can play together. Like, if Aaliyah and Caitlin can develop a pick and roll chemistry, like, that's freaking huge. You can ride that to a championship. 2 great players that can just play a 2-man game.
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yep.
So let's wind things down here. I'll do my last question that I like to ask our guests, and you've done a pretty good job, I would say, at doing this already. But, like, give me your elevator pitch. Like, how are you going to sell the Fever to a new WNBA fan who has no allegiance and, like, is looking for a team? What would you say?
Oh, that's easy. They're in the greatest spot that you could ever be in to be a fan of a team. They have a bright young talent, multiple bright young talents, and they're bad and expect to be bad. So every single night you can turn on the TV, or every other night you can turn on the TV, watch your Fever lose, and be okay with that. But then some nights you turn on the TV and Caitlin Clark pops off, or Aaliyah Boston pops off, or God help us, Grace Berger pops off, and then I get suspended from Twitter. But the expectations are nothing. You expect to lose every night, but you have basketball to watch, and then every once in a while you win.
There you go.
And that's what's great. That's it. That's the elevator pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's stress-free hoops.
Mm-hmm.
Stress-free hoops
with a bright future.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that. I think that's a good place to close it. James, thank you again so much for coming on and talking Fever basketball. Here's hoping that we get to see, that team grow this year and then in the future, and then we're talking about championship. But excited for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll talk to you. During the finals in about 2 years, I'd say.
All right, we'll pencil it in. Well, maybe I'll write it in pen. I feel pretty good about that too.
Maybe I'll be at the game. Look, if the Fever are in the WNBA finals, I'll be there. Give you a report on the ground.
And we will want that report.
Amazing. Yes.
All right, thank you again. We will hopefully talk to you soon.
All right, John, Kristen.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So that was our guest spot with James, the Indiana Fever fan who is new to the W. Very cool perspective to hear someone else that's like picking it up for the first time. Obviously, Chris and Dat were long-term WNBA fans. So it's cool that, we're in a pool of people that are getting excited. And obviously, Indiana has plenty to be excited about. They've had a lot of good picks added to their team. We're going to see what they end up doing in a couple years. But you heard his promise. 2 years, final appearance. It's coming. It's coming for the Fever. Kristen, before we go, do you have anything else to say to our lovely listeners?
Nope, I don't. Except next week, I will be away visiting my family in New York, so I will not be joining you. So I hope you have fun without me.
I mean, I'll obviously miss you, but I will watch some. I'll just watch some hoops. We don't have a particular specific team to follow because next week we're going to be visited by one listener, Tim, to talk a little bit about the expansion in the W to Golden State. So we'll talk Valkyries, talk about some plans in California, and I'll just give you my takes about some games that I watch and see what's going on around the league in week 4 with the Commissioner Cup, see what that ends up being. And if you would like to reach out to us and let us know how you're feeling about the show, send us an email, attackthebaseline@gmail.com. Leave a 5-star review on any platform that you're listening on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It helps the show a lot. A lot of people are loving it. We want to keep continuing to get it out there. So do us a favor and help us out in that way. And I'm looking. I see it. I see the baseline. What am I going to do?
Attack it.
That's right. We'll talk to you, Kristen, in 2 weeks, me next week. But until then, we love you. Talk to you later.